before we get into like any of the more fun stuff, why don't you just explain the project that you make? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people who are going to see the title of this episode and think, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. So, go.
Much as you would expect, Fox on the internet on a YouTube show about Linux, I do weird sex stuff. Uh, I
You gotta be
am
more
the
specific than that.
So I am the project lead of buttplug.io. So not only is it the name of the project, it's our website domain. So we produce a software library and a set of applications that allow you to control intimate devices from your computer. So basically, there have been over the past 15 years or so, kind of this explosion of sort of haptic devices, sex toys, whatever you want to call them.
You're gonna say it eventually. We're past we're past the YouTube. Look, this video is not going to be monetized. So like, no matter what we do,
Okay.
You want us to say
I figured we were like past that first minute, but I just wanted to make sure. Sex toys. So there have been proliferation ever since like smartphones became smartphones. You could start hooking sex toys up to your phone and control them. I started this library back in 2017. It's almost 8 years old now, because there were more and more toys coming out, and there was like no centralized way to control them. You just had to download the manufacturer's app and hope you could do what you wanted with that. So what we do is we go through, we get the toy, we reverse engineer it, find the protocol. Like 95% of these toys are using Bluetooth LE, which is a nightmare. So we make the Bluetooth work on Mac, Linux, Windows, iOS, Android. We also support USB and serial and different network connections and stuff. So basically, we take all of the boring parts of this that no one really wants to do or even really think about and get all that done for you so you can get on to hooking whatever game it is you have or whatever movie it is you want to watch to this hardware. At this point, I forgot to check before we came in, but I think we're in the high 500s.
Wow.
Of devices support.
There's
it's like
a list
500
on the website, isn't there?
580. There is so on the Buttplug website, there's like a tiny list. The big list is at iostindex.com.
Sorry, I meant there was a link on the website. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's
697 it says right now.
Oh, that might be everything on the site. Like there's stuff on that site that we do not support. So if you filter it for butt plug support, it's still in the 500. So it's
I see.
A
this thing's near the
deprecated.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so these are things that have been either supported in the past, you know that it exists and it just hasn't been tested, and then also things that have been, supported as well.
Yes. So I mean, the main team of the project, there's really two of us. I am sort of the face of the project, as well as all of the shit posting on social media and the core library architecture. And then we have another devices dev who is the person that runs IOST Index, and they really do buy all the hardware. Like, they have turned this into their own personal Pokemon, and they have caught them all. So I mean, it's just like boxes and boxes of this stuff. Meanwhile, like, I'm trying to pare down at the moment. I do not need all of these vibrators.
I was gonna ask if you had to, because obviously there's the list and things have been tested. If you had to guess how many you personally have, because like if we have like a firmware developer, right, like someone developing some what is the thing called whatever, let's say you're developing you want to support mice in a mouse configuration software, an open source configuration software. You're gonna have a bunch of mice, right? If you're supporting keyboards, if you're like doing anything we need to support a bunch of devices, you're probably gonna buy a bunch of devices or be sent devices by companies that want to have their device be supported. How many? What is the number?
So I mean, there's like the devices that I just get, and then there's like I've got a museum of the special ones, like the stuff that I'm never gonna be able to buy again, or for some reason, or like either the company went out of business and it's never going to be made again, or it was just a horrible piece of hardware and it should never be made again. But overall, I would say I'm in like the 150 range or so. So and the problem is like, you gotta, a lot of these are like really, really tiny. But then you've got things like your machines, like your actual like rotary fucking machines and stuff.
Yeah.
I have 4 of those. No one on this planet needs 4 fucking machines unless you're like renting them out or something, which I am not. That is not a business I want to be in. I do not want to clean that when it comes back in.
Just thinking like the logistics, like logistically, you could probably use 3 at once. Maybe.
Yeah. But I mean, it turns into a very pokey game of Twister. And there's. Yeah, it's a time.
So for the people that think this project is just like, I don't understand why this exists, think of it like Home Assistant for sex toys, right? Like all of these toys have their own like, walled garden applications, and this allows you to bridge that gap. Like with the home automation stuff, where, you have like the Philips app, you have all of these different apps and their different light bulbs and other random stuff. It's basically the same idea, but for sex toys.
I should also say we do have a home assistant plugin.
Of course you do.
Yeah, so the reason, not only is this a way to make sure that you can access all of this hardware. So it's like there is that technical challenge, but there's also a really interesting design challenge around this. And this is about how do we create a language for touch? Because if you think about it, like computers, we're pretty good at video. We're pretty good at audio. We can recreate a lot of things. We can make really realistic looking things or not so realistic looking things. And we're pretty good at that. But we've still got like taste, touch, and smell that we haven't really got. Like, I mean, smell tech is still the joke it has been for the past 20
I
years.
know there's been tech demos and stuff like that, but it's never really been more than a tech demo.
Oh, they're so bad. I've had to deal with multiple smell tech things at like GDC and SIGCHI and stuff, like, and it's basically like getting maced by your computer. It's not a good time. But touch, we're kind of like, we're very, very vaguely okay at. We are very good at making things vibrate in different ways.
That's pretty
We've had
easy,
a lot of a lot of practice at that through Gamepad Rumble, and now through these new sort of HD Rumble things that we get in like VR controllers and Joy-Cons and DualSense controllers that are using like LRAs or VCAs or something like that.
What do those terms mean? Sorry, before we go on.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So, in like the old gamepads from like the 2000s and stuff, those used what we called ERMs, eccentric rotational motors. So you basically put a weight on the end of the motor and then you spin it around real quick.
Right.
And that was how we used to make Rumble. Now, we use these mostly things called voice coil actuators, VCAs. So instead of having to spin up a weight, you basically have something that's akin to a speaker or a subwoofer in your controller that you can actually just play audio buffers through. It moves much faster, and that's how we get things like that click feeling, like when you're on a modern trackpad or something like that, even though there's no mechanical in there.
Right.
So, they're basically like the new big thing in haptics, but they're still basically vibrotactile. Like, we don't have much in the way of, for instance, like thermohaptics. Like your controller doesn't really get like warmer when you're in like a volcano level or something like that. Like
Mm.
we have to basically break everything down into what can we translate through vibration, which is there's so many more types of touch than that. And that's kind of what butt plug is about is like let's take this one particular niche of haptics and see what happens if we try to create a language around it. And
Right.
so far I would say we have failed spectacularly, but we had to try. Uh, because it's the thing about trying to write software for this specific hardware is that
Mhm.
there's no standards.
Right.
So it's not like they're like a joystick where there's buttons and like digital and analog sticks and things like
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
No, we've got well, maybe you've got a vibrator or maybe you've got something to move back and forth or oh, someone made this new thing with like an air bladder in it.
Right.
And we have to because the whole idea of the library is we like of those 500 and some toys that we develop for I would say 90% of those are just vibrators.
Sure.
And
Sure.
much like everyone else, we're good at saying, okay, make this thing vibrate. But it's that other 10% where something like moves back and forth or expands or does something weird. Like I just got a lubrication shooter actually that goes on one of the machines that I have.
Okay.
And now I have to figure out like how do I add this to our language
Mhm.
in a way that will be useful for developers.
Mhm.
But like it's this huge balance that you get in any sort of physical interface device. Like this
Mhm.
is why we don't see a lot of like new types of joysticks either,
Mhm.
because a joystick you would plan to use it with the game, but then you have to develop games to use the joystick and then you have to like get developers to want to do that and it's this whole cycle that's just really hard to develop around.
Mhm.
So I would say, like, while our project's been going for this long, we're like three, about to be four versions into our protocol specification, which is what lays all this stuff down.
Mhm.
We're still at the early days and we're still learning a lot.
Right.